I am recording everything that we are doing. That way, if somebody misses, you should still be able to watch it. Hopefully you can't hear me whenever you play it through. It'll just be a media file. Raise your hand if you're currently also taking geometry. Perfect. Wanted to make sure of that. Because all of the formulas we're going over today, you should have learned either in geometry or Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. So nothing here should be Algebra 3 level yet. But what I want to talk about first is, where would you ever use something like this in life? Well, postage stamps. A while ago, the mail company actually decided to raise postage stamps. You guys remember that? But did they just decide to jump it like 20 cents immediately?
No, they did it gradually.
They did. They actually figured out if we do it 2 cents every year, then I can make it to the ending amount that I want in so many years. So what they're doing is actually using midpoint formulas to figure that out. Minimum wage also. When the government decides to raise minimum wage, if I decide by the year 2020 it's going to be X amount, well, if I jump immediately in 2020, well, now the government's in a deficit. So instead, I say in 2014 we need to raise it this much, then in 15 we do it this much, then in 16 we do it this much, and so on. Okay, so they're using like a slope formula to figure out how much do I raise it every year so that the government's not out a ton of money. Makes sense, right? So that's where it's used in life. So what we're going to do are just some basic problems that hopefully you remember. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to find the distance between these 2 points. What do you need to do in order to find the distance? No. Raise our hand though so we can get some ideas here. Somebody other than Sparta. What do you guys need to do to find distance? Distance formula. So if you forgot, here is the distance formula. If you forgot. You remembered, that's great. Now the distance formula, does anybody know where it was derived from? Anybody know where the distance formula comes from? Kind of. You're actually on the right path there. Well, before I explain where it comes from, how about you go ahead and plug those numbers into the distance formula and see if you can find the distance between those 2 points for us. As you're doing that, I'm actually going to label these points, x1, y1, x2, y2. I always find that it's helpful if I label the points. Now I'm not looking for the rounded decimal, I'm just going to leave it as a square root sign because I don't have a calculator in front of me, nor do I really need one. So raise your hand if you got square root of 185. Perfect. Perfect. So I have all my work up there so you can go through that. But you actually said, Sacco, this is from where? Greek. It's actually from the Pythagorean theorem, which is Pythagoras, right? Let me show you how that works. I'm going to plot this point at -5, 7. and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4. Now, if I just actually draw a straight line down and a straight line over, how would I find the distance from this point to this point? What lovely theorem. Exactly. So I could do the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, some of you, this may be much easier, because if I graph it, I can actually look. This right here is 7, and this is 4, and 7 plus 4 is 11 squared is 121. Okay, from here over to here, that was 5, and this is 3. 5 plus 3 is 8 squared is. Notice that the exact same numbers are coming out that I did here, aren't they? The exact same thing. So if I add those together, I get 185. I take the square root, I get the square root of 185. Same answer either way. You do whichever one makes you feel comfortable, though. Sound good?
Well, we have to do this math, but
That is one way, yes. All right, so we're going to verify that these points are a right triangle. Go ahead and write the question down. And you can abbreviate the questions however you like, just so you know. That way, if it is a longer thing, you can make it a lot shorter for yourself. What is the first thing, though, that you think we need to do? Yep, graph it. Make sure you raise your hand, though, Sparta. Yep, let's work on that. Now let's graph the 3 points. Well, what proves something's a right triangle? Whitney. Okay. Well, I can't tell that that's 90 degrees. I can't just look at it and say it's 90 degrees. This is no longer elementary school where you get to pull out a piece of paper and stick it in there and say, okay, if it fits that. How many of you remember doing that in elementary school? Okay. We can't do that here. That doesn't actually prove that it's a right triangle. Now, please note, when I say prove, this is not geometry class. You're not doing an actual proof. That should make you feel better. Immediately, I saw some sighs of relief. Well, what other theorem does a right triangle have to follow? I'm going to pick on Mallory. You just have to say what you said before. It has to follow the Pythagorean theorem again. I wasn't picking on you to make you nervous. I just knew you could give that to me. So I need to know the length of A, the length of B, and the length of C. Well, how do I find the length of all those? Well, we didn't use the word triangular yesterday. So I don't want to use that. Okay, I can't actually count. That doesn't work here. Right? Because it's slanted, it's not a straight line. I can't just count the blocks like the last one. The last one was nice and easy. I could count down, I could count over, and then I could figure that out. I need to use the distance formula. So I need to do the distance formula for those 2 points, the the distance formula for those 2 points and the distance formula for those 2 points, right? Now, I'm not going to make you do all of this, but instead, I'm going to try to make this a little easier. Let's label this A, B, and C. Okay? Here's what I need you to do. If you're in this group, I need you to find the distance from A to B. If you're in this group, I need you to find the distance from B to C. If you're in that back group, I need you to find the distance from A to C. Which one do you guys want to do? A, B, C, C, or A, C? Okay. That's one you guys will do. Now, if this is a homework problem, yes, you have to do all 3. Since we're in class, I'm trying to make this a little easier. So you do it individually, check with your group, see if everybody agrees. This is my way of shortening a problem in class. Once you get an answer, I do need you to talk to your group and make sure everybody in your group agrees. That way I'm not writing up a wrong answer up here. And I'm assuming if all 3 of you agree or all 4 of you agree, then you're right. You guys agree? Yep. Okay, what's the guess? Square root of 5. What do you guys guess? Square root of 45? So finding the difference between each set of points. So that's fine. That's a good idea. So one thing Sacker's doing is on the side, he's actually writing himself notes so that he knows, all right, this is a homework problem. I need to find all 3. That way he knows, all right, I've got to do all of this. This is my quick way of making a long problem a lot shorter for us. Okay? And Justin, do you 3 agree?
Yeah.
What do you guys get? Square root of 50? Does that make sense to you guys? 25. Square root of 50? You all agree? Okay, all right. Now, I need to do Pythagorean theorem. You can do that first part. That's the hard part, the distance formula, right? This part's easy. Which one is the biggest, first off? Okay. Now, you can know this 2 ways. You can either look here and figure out that it's longest, or you can look here and see 50 is bigger than all the other numbers. So it must go in for C. That make sense? Should have known that from geometry class, depending on which teacher you had. But they taught you that the smallest ones go in here, the largest one always goes here. All right, this is simple now. Square root of 5 squared. Yeah. Square root of 45 squared. Square root of 50 squared. Is that true? So yes, it's a right triangle. You proved it. That's simple. That's not a long problem at all, is it? I mean, it is long in the respect that you had to find all 3 of those, and we shortened it just by separating that. But otherwise, it was pretty simple. So now let's find the midpoint. midpoint formula? Raise your hand if you can tell me the midpoint formula. All right, Zach, let's see.
You said Y2 minus Y1 over.
That's slope. That is slope. Okay, Whitney? Your slope. It's actually x2 plus x1 over 2. Now, here's how you should remember this. You're actually finding the average of the x's. Well, how do you find average? There's your key word right there, Whitney, add. As soon as you said add them together, you knew that. And divide by how many there are. And there's always 2. And then y2 plus y1 divided by 2. So go ahead and figure out your midpoint. Please make sure you do show work, though. Like plugging in the numbers would be work. That would be good for me. There's the answer I got. 1/2, 5/2. You guys agree, or? -6 plus 7 is just 1. All better now? Okay. Any questions? Midpoint pretty easy? Still review, right? So let's do it differently. What if I give you a midpoint and I give you an endpoint? Can we find the other endpoint? And the answer is yes. So take a minute, write that down. And then we're going to work through this one and try to make it easy enough for us using just our formula. Well, you have to review them so you remember them. Geometry class is where you learn these ones. The midpoint? This is just midpoint formula actually being used. There's not a special formula for this one. We're actually just going to use the midpoint formula. So are you ready to see how it's done? Midpoint of x's. So Cheyenne, what was the formula just to find the midpoint of x's? What do we do? Okay, so we added our x's together, right? So like Cheyenne said, x2 plus x1 divided by 2. And that gave us the x midpoint, right? That gave us the x part of our midpoint. Notice I put xm. That way m stands for midpoint. Well, okay, now that I've given you that formula, Ian, how would I find the y part?
Y2 plus Y1
Equals? Yeah, ym. So again, I'm going to use that. Now, all I did was I took the midpoint formula and I separated it into 2 parts, right? Well, now let's label. So it's telling us one endpoint is this. What do you want to label this endpoint as? Raise your hand and tell me what you want to label this endpoint as. Go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, and? Okay, that'll work. Now, Mallory did not have to say x2, y2. She had another option. Anybody know the other option? Yep, x1, y1. I really don't care which way you decide to label it. It does not matter. But this one, we have no option for it. You only have one choice for it. Sorry, you don't get to actually choose between 2. Midpoint. XM, YM. That makes sense? label this x2, and I labeled this xm, what am I missing out of this formula? x1. We're going to plug in our numbers and solve the formula. So x2 is negative 1 plus x1 over 2 equals 2. What's underneath that 2? A 1. So I've got a fraction equal to a fraction. What do you guys, how do you solve that? Famous word.
Can you just cross out first paper and you're left with
I can. I can. One's on top, one's on bottom. So Brandon's saying, can I cross them both out? Absolutely. So what's left over here though, Brandon?
1.
Okay. I was going to show you another way to do this, but the number's just 2, and I gave it a bottom of 1. Any whole number can be over 1. I may need that on the second part, that's why. But Brandon was nice enough here that the 2's canceled. Now notice, I've got a 3 on this one. They're not going to cancel so nicely. So now I solved that. What does x1 equal? Okay, that was simple. Go ahead and set up the next one. Fill in your numbers where they're supposed to go. You okay, Brandon?
Where did you get the 1 after?
When you cross this out, it becomes a 1. And 1 divided by 1 is 1.
Oh, I see. Then x has to just be 2. That's making you do 2 over 1. Just making it a fraction or...
All right. So hopefully you set it up this way, right? Now this time, when Brandon looks across, he notices that he cannot just cross them out. They're not the same number. They don't simplify, do they? So how do you solve a problem with an equal sign in the middle? Cross multiply. So we're going to do that. 3 times 2 is 6. And 1 times that would just be that. That makes sense? Which is the only reason I did the 2 over 1 over here. That's the reason I did that. And then all of a sudden Brandon said, well, wait, Ms. Z, I've got an easier way. They cancel out, which is fine. So if I solve this, I get y1 equals 4. So what's the other endpoint? 2, 4. So I know, Justin, you had Mr. Domingo last year? So Mr. Domingo taught you about the midpoint and how to use the midpoint formula, but he probably didn't go into how do I find another endpoint, which all it is doing is using the formulas you know, plugging in numbers and solving backwards. Okay? All right. Let me see what I've got left. Let's just talk this one through. We don't actually have to do it. So I want you to read it. Discuss with your group what you would do. All right. So, like I said, we're not going to do this one. It's actually pretty straightforward if we just talk about it, and that's why we're skipping this one. You'll have one like this on your homework, but I kind of want to make sure you have time to start that. That's why. So, my group in the back, you guys ended kind of quickly because I think you guys figured it out quickly. What did you guys come up with?
Find the midpoint as 2 points.
Okay, so I'm going to change colors. We're going to pretend like this is the midpoint. I don't know. We didn't actually figure it out. I just decided to put a purple dot.
Then take one and put the midpoint minus midpoint that. Then take the other endpoint and midpoint minus midpoint that.
Make sense? No, because they're not gonna come out nice pretty numbers. Okay, I've done this homework already, it doesn't. Now, normally in life either, you're not gonna have nice pretty numbers between things, right? If I'm working on a building of some sort, it never comes out that it's exactly 20 feet by 20 feet. It doesn't. I worked on my bathroom, it did not come out nice pretty numbers. Instead it's like 18 and 3/16. Really, 3/16? Couldn't go with like a quarter or something like that. No, 3/16. They never come out nice pretty numbers. So that's why you can't just die it. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody how we did that though?
So you take the midpoint and five.
Yep. So you find the original midpoint, then you use the midpoint and endpoint, and then again the midpoint and the endpoint.
Alright, so you find the midpoint in between this coordinate
Yep.
and that in between the first midpoint. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and our final one. I decided to open an actuarial firm. I had 15 million in revenue in 2003, 17.2 million revenue in 2005. What do you think the revenue was in 2004? So see if you can work in your group, see if you can figure out what my revenue was in 2004. This is using what we've actually talked about in real life and how they would use it in real life. What do you guys think? Some of you are already working it out, which is good. Brandon, what were you saying in your group? I was listening and it was good.
We thought that 50 the midpoint of 2003, 2005, and your year would be your X, and your money would be your Y.
Yeah. Now, here's my question. He's saying, I'll use my X's as the year. Do I actually need to figure out the X part of it? I'm going to be, I am recording by the way. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to add together my money amount. And then I'll divide that by 2 and I should get 16.1 million. Pretty simple, right? But that's how I would actually use it in real life. Nice simple case of that. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you think this one was really simple and you're like, wait, it should be harder. Okay. Yeah, it was meant to be that easy. So sometimes you get a homework problem and you read it and you're like, this is way too simple. It's okay, it's simple. Sometimes that happens. Any questions? Okay, I'm giving. Go ahead, you're fine. You want to make sure you have time to write that down. The rest of you, if you want to pull out a clean sheet of paper for essential work that's not out of your spiral notebook, if you need paper, it is over here. Since you just set up your lovely binders, if you want to grab extra paper to put in your binder, that would be fine with me. That way I can go to the office and get some more. And your essential work. Oh, I forgot to do this one. You want to just discuss it real quick? Okay. If I take these 3 points on a triangle and I move them down 3 and left 5, what would I need to do with the point? Which point moves it down 3? Good. That means my X moves it left 5. Left would be positive or negative? So my new point would be -2, 1. Straightforward, right? Or you have another option. What's the other option you could have done with this problem? Yeah, you could do that also. Graph it and move it. There's one like that on the homework. Okay. That's it. There is your essential work. I have an answer key ready for you. So as you're going, if you want to check it, that's fine. If you want to come after school and check your answers quickly, that's fine also.